building compassionate communities for the at-risk and underserved through mentorship. Based in Billings, Montana, his work focuses on developing leaders, training mentors, and creating scalable community models that foster connection, resilience, and opportunity. Dr. Leavenworth holds a PhD in counselor education and supervision from Adams State University and has spent over a decade working as a licensed clinical professional. He's also a consultant and trainer for organizations including Billings Clinic, Billings Public Schools, and Harvest Church. He hosts the Pay Love Forward podcast, a long-form interview series. He's also the author of multiple books, including The Marrow in Our Bones, The Blood in Our Veins, and The Girl with the Magic Glasses, which I believe those books are at your table, yes? Okay. Which explore themes of resilience, healing, and meaning. His work sits at the intersection of storytelling, mentorship, and community development with a focus on building networks of care that are both deeply human and practically sustainable. So if you join me in welcoming Matt to the stage.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Danielle. Danielle's also a partner in crime, and truly love this as a venue, love this as a, I'm a true believer in story. And that really came out of my background as a mental health counselor, and this was a transformation that occurred inside of me. And it happened through just sitting with people for thousands of hours, and quite literally thousands of hours, and hearing their stories. And when you hear people's stories, and not everybody is, totally articulate at telling their stories. Like, telling your story is a really hard thing to do. It's incredibly vulnerable. Like, it's similar to getting up and getting naked on a stage and talking about your that's why we have to imagine everybody else naked, right? Although I think it's kind of funny that I'm in a room and looking around, and thank you for coming. My one counterpart here, Leif, abandoned me. But actually, as a mental health counselor and somebody who's worked in human services, this is not unfamiliar. Like, I've worked in fields that are oftentimes more female oriented than others, and so also, anyway, it's just interesting to be out here, and I shouldn't make any naked jokes, I think. But that's what telling your story really, really is it is talking about all of your vulnerable parts and all of the stuff that most of the time we keep at a distance. So I'm also one of the partners in the Center for Mentoring, Coaching, and Leadership Development, and we train people in compassionate listening. And so that's pretty similar to the work in counseling that I've done. But we talk about 3 questions that we believe are fundamental, that everybody's trying to answer, which is who am I, why am I here, and what can I do with my life that matters? And we just sort of circle around these questions. And another thing that was really interesting that I discovered, one thing I discovered with all those hours listening to people's stories is when you really know people, you recognize that people are carrying unbelievable things that are heavier than anything you possibly could have imagined, and they're stronger than anything that than you ever could have conceived without knowing them in a real way. And it's just true of everybody. It's a fundamental truth. And when you hear their story, there's something in your humanity that reaches out and connects to their humanity. And so it's why I believe that story is one of the most powerful, one of the most healing forces. And we need more story. We need more of this. We need more of what Danielle's built here. This is just an incredible venue, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. And I'm also very, very grateful that we have this in our community. And because you think about the world that we're living in right now and how divided we all are, and all of the reasons we're coming up with to hate our neighbors and to be afraid of the people around us. And truly, story is one of those antidotes to the division that we're facing. And so, so I actually kind of figured out what I was going to talk about today last night, and at like 11 o'clock or something like that. And a whole plan, yeah. But because I think that's also true of people. When I sit down and ask people, like, tell me your story, they oftentimes don't know their story. People are fairly unaware of their story. And that actually kind of makes you, in some ways, a victim of the stories that everybody else is telling about you. And so it's also one of the most empowering things that you can do, which is to reclaim your story. But it's a live thing, it's an unfolding thing. And so I'm a lot of different things. I'm a counselor, I'm a rock climber, I'm a tennis player, but I'm also a writer. And so I've never really told my writing story, and so I was thinking I would tell part of that, because that's one of the things that I've always been as a writer. And so my background is, it was really rough when I was a kid. I was a drug user, I was a drug dealer, I was violent, I was promiscuous, I was many of those things in my early 20s, and I did a lot of damage both to myself and to the world around me. And there was, you know, and I'm not going to go into, I've told that story, I don't mind talking about that story. I think a lot of us come from hard places and probably have done things that we're not proud of, but much of my story was a pilgrimage out of that, I think. And there's three things that really got me out of the misery and despair. And, you know, I was all of those things, but I was also extraordinarily depressed, unbelievably anxious, consistently suicidal, you know, with multiple attempts, and just inhabited a very dark place for a very long time. And there were three things to me that really kept me tethered to my humanity, I think, and enabled me to get out of that darkness. And the first one was that I started working with kids with special needs when I got out of college. And I was a good student all the way through, so, you know, had all of some of these dark students, these dark things, but was a good student, got out of college and started working with kids with special needs. And there was something about these beautiful little human beings that just called out to my humanity. And I was very good to them. I could go kind of be a shitty person off to the side, but like when I worked with them, they just brought out what was best in me. And there was an innocence and a beauty and a joy in them that truly kept me tethered to humanity. Like I could look at the human experiment, because I don't think it's obvious that life is good. Like I actually don't. Like you look around, you read history, and it's sometimes it's hard. Like that's a hard question to wrestle with. Like there's so much pain and so much misery, and there's cancer, and there's this and there's that, and it's not easy to know that what it is that we were sent into without our permission is truly a good thing. And those little children taught me that maybe it was. And that was not transformative in and of itself. The second thing was my parents, that they loved me regardless of the choices that I was making. So there was an unconditional love. I had really good parents that stuck with me, that they didn't enable me, but they were always there. And I always knew that they loved me. And eventually I was kind of able to climb out of my addiction and some of the struggles that I was having. And it really was kind of through willpower, but I was able to clean my life up and get myself into a counseling program. I did figure out at some point that I really like helping people. And, you know, especially those who struggle. It's something like that, like the downtrodden, the discarded. It's something like that. But I kind of learned that about myself, and I was able to get myself into a master's program and became a mental health counselor. And in that process, I met my wife, and that was truly when I switched sides. I started playing for a different team, but I mean, there was a conversation. It was on a Valentine's Day, and I kind of told my wife, like I fessed up, like this is the kind of person I am. And, you know, believing that she was going to reject me, that she was going to find out who I truly was. And you know, I was carrying that, right? That if anybody ever figured out who I really was, then they'd turn and head the other direction. And I told her these things that were very hard things. And it was heartbreaking for her to hear that, I know. But like when I looked for her response, I could see that she truly loved me. Even in all of the broken parts and even with all of the broken pieces. And there was something that just profoundly healed in me in that. And so then I really did start playing for a different team, and I haven't looked back since then, and really committed myself fully to my wife. Her name's Kylie. She's a physician in Billings Clinic. She's one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. She's the director of medical education now, and really it's one of my like true norths on my compass. Like if my wife tells me to do something, I just go do it because she's smarter than I am. And truly, I think a better person. And so it's one of those navigational systems. And so kind of fast forward the story, I became a mental health counselor. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about writing. But there was a poem that we used in counseling. I was a counselor for Yellowstone Counseling for a decade or more. And there was a poem that we always used, and I'm going to read that poem. But this poem actually really initiated, because I'd written prior to that like 6 novels or something like that, and none of those are ever published. They just live on my computer. So all this time just have been a writer. I was writing when I was 10 years old. I started writing poems, and you know, in high school, like you could look at my notebooks and they'd just be full of scribbles and nonsense. And so always have reached for that, because that's a way that you tell your story, right? Or that's one of the things, like art is one of those things. It's one of the ways that we understand ourselves. And so for me, that's always been something that has helped me organize who I am to understand myself. But there was this poem, and it's called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters. Anybody heard that before? That poem? No? It's a wonderful poem. Okay, so I didn't write this poem, but this poem initiated kind of all of the others that fall into this format of these books that I've written. So Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters by Portia Nelson. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes me forever to find a way out. 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. 3, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it's there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. And 5, I walk down a different street. And I love that poem because it follows the stages of change model, like almost, one for one. And it's interesting because most of us are falling in some kind of hole over and over and over again, whether it's addiction or depression or, it can be any of those things, or your anger that dominates you and you fall back in. And there's a couple places where I discovered that I thought that poem was incomplete. One is that I actually think getting out of the hole is only half of the battle. Actually, you've got to go start building something once you get out of that hole. And that can be the hardest part, because once you get out of that hole, if you've been in there for a very long time, generally what's waiting for you on the other side is the wreckage that you caused while you were in there. And so that's about half the battle, is getting out of the hole. There's another component of that, though, that I think is missing, and that's that there are a lot of people, and I work with a lot of young children with so much trauma and so much abuse, and there are so many of us who've grown up where people have just shoved us in that hole. And we did really try to get out over and over and over again, because there's something in our humanity that wants better, that wants love, that reaches for something more. And so it's not always just us falling in the hole, right? Sometimes life is just a little bit harder than that. And so we have to have these kinds of conversations with forgiveness and empathy and compassion. But also, so the first poem I wrote, and this really launched all of these, and it's called A Home. I finally stopped falling in the hole. I spent a lifetime down there. The hole was deep and dark. I hated it. I walked down a different street, but the world was large and full of things that scared me. I started to miss the hole. I began to forget that I hated it. At least the hole's familiar, I told myself, and it's out of the wind and the rain. It's safe down there. Nobody can hurt me. I didn't fall back in this time, but I knew that I could no longer stay so exposed. I started building. It was very hard at first because I didn't know how. I had to learn new things. I had to find new tools and new ways of being. I built the foundation, and then the beams and the structure. Finally, I had a home where the wind and rain couldn't find me. When the storms raged, I was safe. I kept building. I added more rooms. I invited others to come and live with me. I invited love into my home, and my walls rang out with joy. Now, I don't think about the hole so much any longer. And so that's the first book that I wrote, and many of them were just sort of lessons that I extracted from working with clients and watching people heal and grow. And then, of course, all of this stuff is, there's something in us that wants to go, if we get out of our holes and go build our homes, we want to go back and repair the things that we broke, or the things that were broken in our worlds, and certainly that is counseling for me. That was part of my call to the mental health profession. And so that's also part of it. And so I got to witness people healing and changing and growing and telling their stories and reclaiming their stories and learning that your story is yours and you can tell a better one. And that's so empowering and so powerful. And so a lot of the lessons, and I'm working on a sequel to this one, but a lot of lessons I just wrote in that really simplistic format that can just walk people through the stages of how to grow and how to change, which are so much harder than anything you can encapsulate there. But that's one of the first books that I wrote. And so, fast forward a little bit, I was in counseling, and this is about 2017. It's right around the birth of my daughter, and a young girl, she was very close to my practice, committed suicide. She was 16 years old and shot herself with a gun that she just never should have had access to. And it shattered something inside of me. I wound up seeing a number of her friends in counseling, and they talked about just the empty place that was left behind, where this beautiful young woman, and she was beautiful and smart and charismatic, and it just was a wrecking ball for me personally and for so many others. And there's just something like existentially devastating about when a young person takes their life, because it's almost like a rebuke of the world itself. And so it really broke something in me and caused me to go search and look for better answers. One of the things that I concluded was that counseling is insufficient, that it's just not enough. And so I started looking for those answers. And I believe, and this is pretty foundational for Pay Love Forward and all the work that we do, that people, they need community. That's one thing that you're gonna fall down. And if you have people around you that care about you and love you, they'll be there to help pick you back up. And that can make all the difference in the world. And people need meaning. You need something bigger than you, because otherwise it's just too bleak. And then it really is very helpful to have a mentor, a counselor, a teacher, or somebody who walks with you even when you fall down and believes in you. And so the mission statement for Pay Love Forward is to build compassionate communities for the at-risk and underserved through mentorship. And so we do those things. It's a model for building community. And even tonight, if anybody wants to bring their kids, everything we do is pay what you can, family friendly, but it's community based. That's what we do, is build community. And Tammy, my partner back there, she's one of the best. She builds community. And so that is what I have been about for a very long time. Since 2019 is when I first started taking kids climbing. And we were talking earlier that the first time I scheduled Pay Climbing Forward, nobody showed up. And Billings it's tough soil. I actually think there's really tender, good, nutrient-rich soil underneath our fairly hard crust. I don't know how else to describe Billings, but there is something truly beautiful about our city. There are so many people. We have 800 nonprofits. Everybody sends us their broken things. They send their broken things to our hospitals. They bus in their broken things on a one-way ticket and leave them and drop them off in the middle of our city. Our group home system is extraordinary. And so people send us the kids that don't have homes, and we care for people. That's who Billings is. We are better at caring for people than anybody else, any other city. And so I'm never leaving Billings. This is my home. This is where I'm going to raise my children. And so, yeah, I love Billings. And it's a little crusty on top, and so you got to work a little hard to get underneath. Anyway, all of this time I've just always kept writing, and so I wanted to read another poem here. And so I wrote a book called The Endless River, because what got me to Billings is I was a fly fishing guide on the Bighorn River while I was in my master's program. And so I came and I was a fly fishing guide, and wrote poems about fly fishing, and eventually collected them quite a bit later. So there's that book and then this book. And I wanted to read this one because truly my wife saved me. There's just no other way. I don't know the person that I would have become. It probably would have been okay, because I was better by then, but she has brought out what is best in me. And I think truly I've done that for her as well. But so this one's called A New Dawn. My wife wakes me, come look, fighting off sleep in wilderness, just as the sun emerges to wage war against the skyline, heaving its heavy body up over the horizon line, breaking free from the night-clenched fists in a panoply of color. Shh, she whispers, as I rustle around in my sleeping bag like a pile of dead leaves, groaning. Sleep-stained eyes, yanking on my jeans and pulling on my shoes. This is too early. She points. My eyes follow her finger, squinting into the glossy glow of the new day's sun. In the dew-stained meadows that surround this trickling creek with gold, look there, etched and outlined between the waves of long grass rolling with the wind's tide. See a bull moose, big as a Clydesdale, with tree branches tacked on its skull, water piling up against its oaken mass, muscles rippling slowly and methodically as it blows its head, dipping into the stream, calm and soft. Sleep vanishes from my eyes as we creep slowly closer, concealed and clandestine, melting into the woods. The sound of the wilds harmonize with babbling creek and chirping bird and rustling wind. Dawn is a symphony with the great arms of the sun conducting it. I hold her hand, holding my breath there. Emerging from the brush on the far bank, the cow wades into the stream behind him with her calf. My wife nuzzles close to me and we watch, only spectators in this opined orchestra, this wild and lovely song that plays on endlessly, indifferent to our presence. I gather a few sticks for the fire as we head back towards our camp. She boils water for coffee. Our turn will come soon. already she's starting to show. You know, there's people that come into your life and they save you, and my wife is one of those, and yeah, man, I'll follow her into fire. But that was my daughter, and so right in the midst of all of that, with a young girl taking her own life, my daughter was born, and I just came fundamentally to the conclusion that it was just not enough for me to be a good father. I had to make the world a better place for my kids to grow up in, and so that's what we do. That's what Pay Love Forward does. And so 2-3 years go forward, and Pay Love Forward was expanding, growing. We were doing really great things, like really exciting things. And then, I was in my PhD program at this point in time, and a couple of things happened. One was that my wife got pregnant again, and we found out at about 12 weeks that our son would have Down syndrome. And that is an earth-shattering piece of news. Regardless of what it is that you think, there are pieces of news that you can get, like you have cancer, or like where you were living in this world, and you find this information out, and suddenly you're in a totally different world that you had not prepared for and didn't understand. And so my wife and we are not particularly pro-life. I tend to refer to the people I see that are loudest about being pro-life as being pro-birth, because that's about all that they do, and I'm sick of that. Because pro-life actually means we care about our children, we care about feeding them, we care about their schooling, we care about what happens to them after they're brought into a fairly brutal world. And so if you want to be pro-life, sure, come talk to me, but there's a lot of work to be done that happens after conception and after birth. And so my wife and I, we decided that we were going to go forward, and that we had the love and the resources to take care of this child. And again and again throughout that pregnancy, we were told that he wouldn't leave, he had a heart defect, that he wouldn't survive. And we just kept going forward. And so another thing was happening. I was losing my vision at this time, and I didn't really understand what was going on. And I won't describe all of that, but I wound up having a traumatic brain injury that happened at this point in time. And so sometimes you just survive. Is it resilience? I don't know. I just kept waking up the next day, and there was all these problems, and you just sort of do the next thing, and maybe on the other end, I guess it looks like it's resilient, but there weren't a whole lot of options on the table, and so we just went forward, and so the first couple of years were just brutal. My wife breast pumped. She's a doctor, so she had to keep working, and he had 8 bottle feeds every day that each took an hour because his muscle tone was so low, and I had to give him those bottle feeds, and meanwhile my brain was just melting, and the loss of sleep, and it was just absolutely brutal. And we were in the NICU for 60 days, and we were hospitalized numerous times after that, and so it was brutal. But I want to read this poem, and so this is a book so my son wound up having leukemia, so this is kind of the next stage. But this poem I wrote at 12 weeks, so I think we found out at 10 weeks. And so it's something was given a vision of who my son was, who he is. And I don't know if I actually believed it when I wrote this. That's the thing, you can think one thing, you can think multiple things at one time, or you can want to believe multiple things. You can want to believe one thing, and part of you believes it. We're just really complex. But this, to me, was a vision that almost has a prophetic reality because it's come true. And so it's called Gentry Edward Leavenworth, 12 weeks in utero. And we gave Gentry his name at 12 weeks because it was almost like we felt like we had to claim him. That, there was so much uncertainty there that we just had to say he was ours. And so, Gentry Edward Leavenworth, already I can see it. You're the best in me, with everything else purified out of you. You're with me now, staring up at me from these small black and white ultrasounds, a still life of a fragile life still fighting. Written into you, my little one, is simply more DNA than even God knows what to do with. So much beauty touched. My perfect child. You will be forever kissed by angels, and love will flow from you like a river. And so this book is about, so he was diagnosed with leukemia at about 1 year and 3/4. And then we went to Denver. And, again, I don't know how we did any of these things. I had this horrible traumatic brain injury. I was so sick. There was a point in time where, I had this finally, my brain just totally blew out. And then I was able to get the diagnosis and start the work, which actually we were in Denver, so I got to do gyrostim and Dynavision and all these crazy things that helped me put my brain back together. But I don't know how we did any of it, but we had to move to Denver. My wife had to fly back and forth to keep working, and we had 6 cycles, but the prognosis for him was very, very good. It was like 90+%. So there was this kind of like, when I wrote that book, there was a belief that we would make it to the other side. And so we did what it took. And I mean, I wrote a dissertation in the hospital. I would write for 15 minutes and then go throw up, and then write more. But there was a period of time where my dad had a stroke, my brain really blew out, my son got diagnosed with cancer, and my grandmother died in about a 2-month period of time. And it was just kind of like it's not gonna work out. Like life is just, I was just so sick. Like I just wanted to die all the time. Like I wasn't suicidal, I wasn't gonna do it, but like this is just awful constantly. And like you could eat food that was good, but like you're so sick all the time that you can't actually taste that it's good. Like it just nothing mattered. And so you just kind of limp forward. And then, so we got through and came home and thought we had beaten his leukemia, and we're home for 3 months, and finally got to sleep a little bit better. My brain starts feeling better. I'm starting to heal a little bit. We think we're on the other side, and then he relapses, and so we go from a 90% prognosis to pretty much a 0 prognosis. They had never done a bone marrow transplant which is the next stage. If the chemotherapy doesn't work out, it's the next stage. And so had never done one on a child with Down syndrome. There's only about 30 or 40 of them that have ever been done, ever. And there was a piece of scientific research that came out after my son relapsed that changed the hospital's capacity to give us access to this treatment. And this is the same piece of research. This is the same type of research that RFK Jr. cut when they first came into office. So just want to be kind of clear, like my son was saved by childhood cancer research. And so that is, I'm fairly involved in the political reality right now, and so that was one of the things that really inspired me to get involved, because I'm pretty concerned about where our world is headed right now. But so we go back, and there's a non-existent chance of getting to the other side, and then you just do the next thing, and you do the next thing, and you try to hold your family tight, and you survive, and you go forward. And we made it to the other side, and we're able to ring the bell again for the second time and bring our son home. And I was able to get treatment for my brain injury, and this is a testament to how amazing my wife is. We came back, and she had just survived that whole time. She's a hospitalist, she works hospitalist shifts, but when she got back, they gave her a promotion she's now the director of medical education at Billings Clinic, and she's just an unbelievable human being, and truly, where she goes, I'll go also. But I wanted to read one final poem, and then, because this, like all of this, there was a point in time for me where it was so desperate and so brutal, like I just started reaching. I was always pretty atheistic throughout my life, and there was a point where it just got so brutal that I needed something else to be out there. Like I just lost, my strength was no longer sufficient. And so, one of the things I did there was started reading the Bible and started reading the Gospels. And that for me became truer and truer. I don't proselytize, I don't tell people what to believe, but that became a profound source of comfort for me. And it was something like, instead of having a panic attack every single night, I would listen to that. And somehow it would take me out of a sympathetic state into a parasympathetic state. And so that has become a larger and larger part of my life and my mission and my ministry. And so that is also very connected to what it is that we're doing at Payload Forward, and what it is that we're after, which is, it's something like unconditional and sacrificial love. It's something like building communities where we elevate the least of us. And those things are, and we can do that. You don't have to be a Christian to do that. We can just go invest in each other in ways that build each other up. We can just go love people. And truly, I think it's like the only thing that saves us, because I haven't found anything else, whether it's rock climbing or writing, or that fills the gaping hole that exists inside of me, other than love. And so that's what we're going to build. But this poem, and I do believe that this is the most important thing I've ever written. And it's actually, I wrote the book and then came back and then added this poem later, but it had been floating around in my mind for a very long time. But it's called The Rejected Stone. We were all watching. The world was on fire. A conflagration of rage and pain, of hate and fear and power. I was watching too, holding my child, my brittle boy, my porcelain angel. I was thinking there must be a way forward in all this madness, something to anchor ourselves to, a north star to guide us back to the promised land. As you sank into my arms, soft as putty, the warm heat of your small body, I could feel all the parts of you that were rejected, your broken heart, your leaking lungs, your poisoned blood and marrow. Somewhere in the night, it occurred to me. That passage traveling from so far ago, long ago, the stone that was rejected, yes, I remembered. The entire world suddenly spanning out all around you, you child, are a ladder to heaven, your rejected bones, your rejected blood. I can see it now, a world that could love you, that could hold your fragile beauty. There's redemption in that world. And so, my child, I'll go and build it for you, where you're a cornerstone, a weight and a measure, a pillar of fire to lead us through the wilderness. So that would also be really contained in what Pay Love Forward is, where we build places and spaces where the least of us are become.
I have a perspective, and you have a perspective, and the 15 of the people around us all have their own perspective. That doesn't mean that mine is right or somebody else's is wrong. They're all just different. And so I can change mine to see something differently and maybe come to a different conclusion.
It sounds like it complements too what your dad said, which is that's something you get to choose.
Yes.
What does that mean for you?
Well, it started a very foundational idea for me that I have choices. Things are not decided for me beforehand. Things may happen to me, but I get to choose what to do with it, what to do about it, and what to do afterwards.
What part of your story don't people see or understand? Or maybe they see it, but they just don't know about it. I just gave you a little hint.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite ones. So, my hair is obviously very visible, or the lack thereof. But so many people don't understand why I keep it this way. And it's actually probably one of the longest pieces of my story. So, obviously I have some physical restrictions. And what my bio didn't tell, and I haven't shared yet, was that this October will be 7 years ago since I had a second brain surgery to remove tumor that was cancerous. And while having that surgery, I had a stroke. Thus the cane and struggle moving my arm. But while going through all my treatment, radiation and all that, what they don't tell you is not only does radiation ruin your teeth, it also makes any skin conditions that you have worse. And so I have had dandruff since I was little. And it is exponentially worse now. Well, when you can't move your arm above your head voluntarily, it makes taking care of your scalp very difficult. So once I finished my radiation treatment and my hair started to grow back, because I decided that tracking growth was easier than tracking loss when it started to fall out, and I kept it shaved like this, or, tighter. I decided to grow it out and donate it to Wakes for Kids, because there's so many kids who, have things like alopecia and other concerns that don't allow them to grow a full head of hair. So I donated it and noticed that dandruff was worse. And scalp care is just hard. So I keep it short like this. And people go, why don't you just grow it out? You can, so why don't you? It's not that I don't want to. I kind of like my old hairstyle. But first of all, I look good with short hair. Plus I get to show off my scars. But second of all, my care of my body comes first. And this helps me do it. So they can see the results, but they don't necessarily know why.
I mean, it's a lot easier.
Darn right.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know why we always want to push the hard button instead of the easy button, but it seems like just one step like that can make your life so much easier.
Well, some people's view of it is it's less feminine this way. Well, that's your opinion. I choose to do what I need.
Can you tell us about a time in your life that maybe was difficult or uncertain, and what did that look like for you? And you shared a little bit about that already, but maybe something that we haven't heard yet.
Well, I think I might take a different route than what I shared before.
Okay.
Little harder piece of my journey, I guess. So after I finished all my treatments and everything, and well, no, I guess it was before. After the stroke, before all the treatments ended, gotta get my timeline straight. My now ex-girlfriend decided that we weren't going to be together anymore. And I never was told why. Because, you know, things never end succinctly. And we never really had a talk about what happened, etc., etc. It wasn't messy, but it wasn't clean either. And so her daughter, who is the daughter of my heart, but not my body, who I just call my daughter, but you know, biologically not mine. They moved out after I got home from rehab. 6 weeks before our 10-year anniversary. And so I had to navigate learning how to live in my home, being disabled, but with more difficulty. My writing self should know better. Handling the mental load of not knowing why it ended and being alone.
What helped you shift out of that?
Community. I think that's been a huge theme of today, and it's true. I have an amazing group of friends and family who supported me through my entire journey of life and exploration and the cancer stroke journey. But they helped me build a foundation so that when I was doing all this, I was able to take the opportunity to say, I have things to do. Yes, I can wallow, and yes, I can be depressed and, you know, take time to view things and be sad, and Lord, I have struggled with depression my entire life. But I had things to do. And that's how I beat cancer. And that was how I was going to climb out of this hole I let myself dig. I have to differ with Matt just a little bit. I didn't fall into my hole. I dug my hole. And now that I had gotten through rehab and learned how to utilize my left side of my body a little bit, I grew up left-handed and now had to be right-handed. But if nothing else, I'm stubborn. And so I took up woodworking. And I can't write anymore with my left hand. I learned to write right-handed, but I can hold a piece of wood, and if I can't hold it the way I want to, I can get a clamp.
And you actually have something we just chatted about that probably every woman in this house that's ever washed dishes would appreciate. So she just recently probably finished this piece
Last year.
So tell the women in this room and men, Matt, wherever you are, because I'm sure you've had your share of washing dishes too. What is this piece that you created that we should all probably have?
So previously, I had been using about 3 different drainers on my kitchen counter for when I was, cooked Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner to drain all the dishes, plus whatever wouldn't fit in those went in the sink. And I was sick of it. So I made an over-the-sink drainer. It fits over my double sink and is up high enough that I can still get in there and wash my dishes in the sink. And it holds, I have 4 different sizes of crock pots. I can do my entire Thanksgiving dinner in crock pots. Now, it doesn't count, all the things that you should prep for them, but I can cook everything in those crock pots. And so I can have 5 people in my house for Thanksgiving dinner, and I can fit every dish and piece of silverware and serving, utensils, plus 4 sizes of crock pots and all the plates in this over-the-sink drainer. And I was telling Heather here that my woodworking that I specifically do for me, I call remodeling for renters. I make a cupboard that has 3 shelves. I adjust things, and I have adjustable shelves. But, I might put a divider down the center of one shelf. That way it holds up my my bowls in a certain way, and I can still stack my plates on the other side, different things, but I never drive a screw into my walls or anything, so I still can get my deposit back when I move.
Well, I don't want to turn into like an infomercial, but I'm sure there's lots of people in this room that would want to order one of those over-the-counter, over-the-sink dishwasher holders. And also, I'm gathering just from what you've shared with us so far that you are a very efficient and logical person. Like, just from your haircut and the reason why you chose that to creating this type of invention, and also the idea of your family and still continuing relationships that may have been difficult, including your daughter, who you still have a relationship with.
I have an amazing daughter with my relationship with my daughter, yes. She just turned 21, and even though her mother and I, we'll call it strained, but we still have a good relationship. But she moved to Lakeview, Colorado. She says, I've lived in Billings my entire life, and I need to see what it's like someplace else. But Lakeview, a suburb of Denver, is still close enough that I can move home if I fall on my face. I said, I moved more than 1,000 miles from my folks. I can't tell you not to do it, and I'll be here when you need me.
Well, or in a hole, fall in a hole.
That too.
And also, we have only a few minutes left, but If there was something that you wanted to share with our audience, with these women and men today, what would that be? What would you leave to inspire them with?
This is my favorite part of the whole darn thing. We have choices. Everything that we get to do is a choice. The old saying, it's old but true, is that we don't get to decide what happens to us, but we get to decide what we do about it. I changed the saying a little bit, but you get the idea. My journey through cancer, my very aggressive brain cancer, I forced them to tell me what my life expectancy was, and they told me 18 to 36 months. Well, that was 7.5 years ago. It'll be 8 years. Oh, it was 8 years in March. How about that? It'll be 7 years in October since my stroke. So I get the two numbers mixed up. But anyway, and I could have wallowed with that one and said, well, what the hell am I going to do about it? Instead, I ordered books. I know the power of food, and I have the willingness to cook. And so I decided to see how I could empower my body to get stronger and to fight it off. And my daughter swears by my attitude and outlook that gave my body the power to overcome things I might not have otherwise. But there were choices I made. And I think that is the greatest ability that we have, is over our choices.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I know this room appreciates you. And if anything, you're someone that I will forever carry from this day. But I mean, and she's probably made a mark on most of our hearts today. Like, she's not someone you can forget easily.
Well, thank you everyone so much. You guys are just, this room is just filled with love, and it's been so much fun to be here.
And don't forget to eat your spinach.
Hill speaks from the quiet, tender places most people are still learning to name. She steps onto the stage not to perform, but to offer truth in all the raw, imperfect, and deeply human ways. Through her words, she traces the shape of resilience, inviting others to sit with their own stories, to soften, and to remember they are not alone. Rachel's voice is both a mirror and a refuge, a reminder that healing begins when we let ourselves be seen. With courage and compassion woven into every sentence, she creates space for vulnerability to breathe and for connection to take root. Let's hear it for Rachel.
Again, I'm going to let Rachel have the mic.
I'm probably louder than you are,
Okay.
so.
Okay. I love it. I love it. Well, and again, I can see why Danielle chose you and I to be sitting here having this conversation. There are, from your story, which thank you for sending it to me. I'm sorry we didn't get to connect before, but
That's all right.
I'm happy that we're here now.
Yeah.
And we have a lot in common, you and I. Let's start with some of the experiences and that shaped who you are today.
Oh, yeah. So I'm like, those that know me are laughing because they've heard this 1,000 times. I was born into straight chaos. I was born to a drug-addicted single mother in extreme poverty. My entire sibling group had all gone through drug addictions our entire lives. I am a survivor of childhood sexual assault. At 5 years old, I became an adult. So I've been fighting my way since I was 5. And it was, I went through everything from eating disorders to extreme body dysmorphia. Went to rehab at 17 years old because that's what everyone wants to do their senior year of high school. And This year, I actually just celebrated 23 years clean, so that was exciting. Yeah. I actually forgot, and I was like, how old was I again? But the initial trigger for that was my best friend in high school died by suicide 5 minutes after I got off the phone with him and had no idea that he was going to do that. And so that triggered me going to rehab at 17 and then carrying out into the world. And then, of course, decisions after decisions. I wasn't in my addiction, but I was still in those addictive behaviors of kind of like Matt, just causing chaos everywhere I went. And so, you know, I grew up and moved out to here to Billings and kind of...
Where are you from?
Everywhere. I was born in Wisconsin, grew up in upstate New York in a town smaller than Absaroka, and they actually published a article in our newspaper that we had 3 times as many cows as people. So that's what makes the news in my hometown. Yeah, and lived in Phoenix for a while, went back to New York. New York is a horrible place for me, and I will never return there, and then came out here.
What brought you to Billings?
My parents worked at Yellowstone National Park for 15 years before I moved out here. So originally I was like, I'm going to come out to Montana and live here forever. And then COVID hit New York, and y'all are wild out here, by the way. New York, like, you didn't go into the grocery store without a trash bag on you and hazmat suits. And they only let like 5 people in the store at one time.
Here you could go anywhere.
And here I come out, yeah, like I literally was driving through Laurel on the way to Gardner to go to my parents' house, and I stopped at Walmart, and I had my mask on, and I was all ready, and I walk in, and everybody is just wandering, and they're close to each other, and I was like, and I am no longer in New York.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I had the same experience. I think I went to Red Lodge, and it was the middle, just right middle of COVID. And we were all sitting in a bar having a drink, and I just was like amazed.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even think you all shut down for like,
No.
what, 2 days?
Yeah.
If that? Yeah.
Well, based on the experiences that you shared with
Yeah.
us, what were the things that helped you overcome, and what shifted for you
Ooh.
to start your healing journey?
So the biggest shift that happened in my life, and shout out to Donna wherever she went. There she is. Happy Cancer Survivor Month. I'm also a cancer survivor, so congratulations. So I moved here in 2020, and about a year later in 2021, I went in for my normal well woman exam, you know, because I'm a good little human who does doctor appointments when I should. And I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. I had done everything right, had the vaccines, had everything under control, went to all of my appointments, and I was never one who ever wanted kids. You know, growing up the way that I did, I never wanted to bring a child into the world that was so broken. The only way to 100% get rid of cervical cancer is to fully remove all of your reproductive organs. So as somebody who never wanted to have kids, now that is completely taken off the table. So I had grief of, I no longer have the choice to have children. And I had my full hysterectomy in October of 21. And my sister got sick the next month. She passed away in February the following year. I'm so sorry. And my sister was my best friend. She was the baby of our family. And my sister, God love her, she walked me through both of her pregnancies, which is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life. Also why I never wanted to have children. You can thank her for that. And so she got sick, thank you. And when she passed in February, she left behind a 5-year-old and a 7-month-old. And we found out afterwards, you know, because we're still in the height of COVID, she had long-term COVID, and the hospital that she was at kept sending her home, saying that there was nothing wrong with her. She coded twice on the way from her small town to a larger city, and so within I don't know, 15 hours of my mom calling and saying, you need to get here to Wisconsin. My mom said, stay put because your sister's going. My mom had to fight a battle to get into the hospital. So after my sister passed, you know, and we went through the whole, everybody's dealing with their own things. I am the strong one in our family. I am the protector.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah,
that.
no. I'm the protector, and it took about a year for me to actually hit my grief. And when I did, I actually contemplated dying by suicide. And that was scary. And so that moment I said enough's enough. I went out, I found my tribe, and they've been working with me ever since, and they deal with all of this.
Yeah, you mentioned that, you know, there's a difference between, you know, I think we share this in common too. I have a lot of people that say I have a lot of friends, but I also have a very close, intimate circle of people.
Yes.
And that seems like that's true for you.
Yes.
And what are they for you? How do they help you? How do they support you?
Oh, man. My tribe is, so those of you who have never been to New York, we are very rude, but we will love you to death. We'll give you the shirts off our backs, but we are rude and we don't sugarcoat anything. And that's who my people are.
Yeah.
They don't sugarcoat anything. If I come to you in a hot mess and, you know, I'm streaming down my face, my friends actually will laugh and they'll be like, dude, you look like a feral raccoon right now. Go wipe your nose. And then we sit down and have a conversation.
Well, it seems like you're natural Billings local. Right?
I did fit in really well when I got here.
I was saying, you're kind of a true Montanan here. It sounds
Yeah.
like that. Well, looking back on how long has it been since the cancer and your sister's passed?
So in September will be, God willing, my 5 years, which means I will officially be cancer-free, 100% back to the original.
Nice.
And then it'll be 5 years shortly thereafter that my sister passed.
And so looking back, what would you say you reflect on that has made you who you are, or who you're sitting here right now?
I think the biggest thing is, you know, life is one hell of a ride, you know, and you got to take those ups, you got to take those downs. You know, you
like
may
Joni's roller coaster, where's she at?
Yeah, right. You may cry, you may scream, you may even shit yourself.
I love that part of the bio.
Right?
You may even poo on yourself.
You may even poo on yourself, but at the end of the day, if you don't take that front seat in your own life, you're gonna miss out on some hell of a views. So, you know, you just gotta, even if life says not today, you just gotta keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing forward.
It sounds like that's what helped you change your mind about suicide.
Yeah.
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 And what would you share with this room today if they had or are currently thinking about things like that?
Yeah.
How would you inspire them to say not today?
I would rather sit with you in your grief than sit through a funeral.
Me too.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a pretty no bullshit way, by
Yep.
the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a great approach.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
Oh gosh. So I just passed my doctoral proposal defense.
Wow.
So the plan is to start
Dr.
doing
Hill?
just about. The plan is to start doing research this summer and hopefully be Dr. Hill by the end of December.
That's awesome. And what program are you going to be doing?
So it's strategic leadership. It's through
Okay.
Marywood University.
Okay.
It's been 15 years in the making, so.
So you'll be back here in a few years telling us all about that realm.
Sure. And how I tried not to light things on fire. Yes.
Okay. It can be part of your research, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
Of
for
course.
sharing your
Of
story.
course. Thank you.
We appreciate you, and we know that's been a tough road. I'm overwhelmed, honestly, by the two stories that I got to share with you
Yeah.
and Donna, and how many things we'll have to have coffee and maybe a cocktail. And talk
Or seven.
Or seven. Seven's a good number. Yeah.
Heather,
Yeah.
can I,
Yes, absolutely.
What was your sister's name? What is your sister's name?
Megan.
Do you still talk to Megan often?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, she's probably here with us today.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
She's here. She's probably telling me to shut up, because that's what she does.
Well, I'm never going to say that to you. Thank you for sharing your story. Don't
course.
stop talking. We love you.
Love you.
Thank you, Rachel.